Hi, welcome to Elgin Re-Imagined, a story weaving. My name is Steve Moon, and I am the Director of Elgin Programs at the Grand Victoria Foundation. Elgin Re-Imagined has a really simple purpose. It's to center and celebrate Black, Indigenous, people of color, or BIPOC community voices by uplifting their stories and centering their visions for Elgin Re-Imagined. So why are we doing this? We're doing this because we believe racial equity and racial justice work requires that we center BIPOC community members. And we're using stories because stories have a great way of just cutting across generations and cultures and really showing us where we have these commonalities and where there are differences as well. I want to make really clear that while we offered the prompt of an Elgin Reimagined and that we were talking about racial equity and racial justice, each of these storytellers came up with their own stories. It's in their own words, it's their own truths. They even chose where they wanted to film their stories. So we just wanted to make really clear that this is coming from the grassroots BIPOC voices of Elgin. So in the following stories, you're going to hear stories of resilience and love, but also violence. For some of us, this may trigger our trauma. For others, it may bring up feelings of discomfort and maybe even resistance. We ask that you view and listen to these stories with the open and, if possible, loving heart in mind. It takes an enormous amount of courage to tell these stories because these stories are going to reveal how racism, anti-Blackness, xenophobia, transphobia, how they're integrated and embedded in the systems and institutions of our cities, and how they still commit and perpetuate violence among our community members in really explicit and sometimes covert ways. So these stories are really powerful. They require a lot of vulnerability and courage in order to share these stories, and we acknowledge that risk that comes with it and the emotional labor that each of our storytellers have gone through in order to be a part of this project. At the end of the day, though, we hope that these stories also reveal just the incredible power and joy of our community members. Back when we were starting this process, we got to know each other by sharing the origin stories of our names. And as you'll hear, our names are epics in and of themselves. They reveal dreams, they tell us about our ancestors, and just, are often stories of struggle as well. They also reveal how we can be disconnected from our histories, but in other cases just feel this powerful reclaiming of our identities. So before going any further, we want to name and acknowledge the storytellers involved with Elgin Reimagined. It's Adriana, Atoy, Deborah, Phoenix, and Sandra. And we also want to recognize the two filmmakers, Mario and Jeremy. We are so thankful to everyone for sharing their wisdom, their knowledge, and their skills in a really vulnerable and powerful way. So thank you for joining us. We hope that you enjoy Elgin Reimagined, a story weaving.
Hi, my name is Trenix Phelps, and I was given this name by both my parents. I'm half Lao, so on my mom's side, it's in our culture to name the children by natural elements to keep them away from any demons. But my mom's name is also Bird, so it kind of just ties the rest together. And I can only thank my parents for giving me this name because I love seeing people's reaction whenever I introduce myself, and then they're like shocked, like, what, your name is actually Phoenix? I'm like, yeah, it is, and then they ask me all these questions. But I'm here representing my parents and my culture. Being both Black and Asian, I think I get the best of both worlds. But that also doesn't mean I don't get all the negatives. But as a 15-year-old Blasian helping represent the youth, I've had my fair share of stereotypes and racism. There was a time when I was at school, freshman year, I was walking from World History to Avid, and I was pushed from behind by 3 older white students, and they were saying things like, why aren't you fighting back? Why aren't you tall? Why aren't you this? Why aren't you that? Putting me under these stereotypes and circumstances I was expected to live under, but I didn't. And they kept going as if I was like their toy only because I was black. I didn't tell my parents, any teachers or any friends, because I thought this has happened to me before and it's nothing I haven't already dealt with. My dad told me this story that whenever I was younger and I went outside to go play, my old neighbors would call me a penguin, and I didn't think any of it then, but thinking back at it now, I realize how unfair and racist that actually was. But in life, you get this feeling when you're being targeted just because of how you look, but to try to avoid that, I try to be more outgoing and friendly to people, try to avoid people who get off that, racist feeling. And I feel like I have to try 3 times as hard in everything that I do, in sports, academics, or just being a normal person, just to prove to people that they're no better than me and I can be just as good as them in anything. And to be completely honest, schools are a breeding ground for situations like this, and people are just so unaware, and adults just lay back and watch this all happen, which is not okay and encourages this behavior at schools. But this isn't just something that you brush off and save for later. This is something that can actually make a difference now. My Elgin Re-Imagined is for schools to put more money and resources towards to help stop racism instead of putting it towards drug use or other programs that children like me don't really pay attention to, and to make a safer and healthier environment for me, my sister, and many others shouldn't have to face racism, because people all around the world struggle and face racism, and it can be helped and it should be stopped. But we have to better ourselves as individuals first. So I want to ask, what will you do?
Hola, mi nombre es María Adriana Carpio Chavarín. Yo en lo personal me he identificado más con el nombre de Adriana, es el que más me gusta, el que más uso por su significado, ya que Adriana quiere decir mujer salida del mar. Y en realidad creo que sí, porque a mí me gusta mucho andar en el agua, me gustan las actividades acuáticas. Pero aparte por su significado, que Adriana quiere decir que es una persona benevolente, que le gusta ayudar, que siempre da lo que tiene por los demás. Y yo me considero que soy una persona que siempre apoya, ayuda y le gusta ayudar a la comunidad. Yo emigré aquí a Estados Unidos hace 20 años junto con mi esposo, mis 3 hijas. Cuando llegamos aquí sí me sentí un poco asustada, temerosa. Una, por haber dejado mi familia, mis tradiciones, todo lo que dejé en México. Cuando llegué aquí vi el cambio, sí me sentí un poco asustada, no sabía por dónde empezar, por dónde partir, cómo establecer un hogar para mi familia. Aparte, cuando empecé a conocer la comunidad, pues vi que tenía muchos retos enfrente de mí. Uno de ellos, por ejemplo, era el idioma, que no podía yo comunicarme con la gente, no conocía el inglés. Eso era la primera barrera en la que yo me estaba enfrentando. Pues junto con mi esposo, pues también yo le decía no salgan, nos manteníamos la mayor parte del tiempo encerrados en la casa, salíamos lo más indispensable, hasta que un día, la verdad, el encierro, pues me cansó. Entonces yo platiqué con mi esposo y un día le dije, ¿sabes qué? Yo no vine a este país para estar encerrada, yo no vine para estar aquí encerrada con mis hijas. Yo vine a ver qué oportunidades me daba este país. Entonces, ese día mi vida cambió a 90 grados. Decidí que tenía que salir sin importarme las consecuencias. Entonces, en ese tiempo se llegó la época de inscripción de las escuelas de mis hijas. Yo fui a la escuela, las inscribí. La maestra me dijo que ellas calificaban para el programa bilingüe, porque pues también ellas no conocían el idioma. Entonces ese fue el programa donde ellas empezaron a estudiar aquí en el programa bilingüe. Pero pasado 3 meses, la maestra me volvió a llamar y me dijo, Me dijo, su niña puede calificar para otro programa, el programa de sexuas. Yo me quedé, ¿qué es ese programa, maestra? Entonces ya la maestra me empezó a platicar que el programa sexuas era un programa para niños avanzados. Y como mis hijas venían con un nivel un poquito más alto de los niños de aquí, entonces ella me dijo, ella puede calificar, el único impedimento pues sería el inglés, porque ella no domina bien el inglés. Pero la vamos a ayudar con eso. Fue así como invitada por la maestra, que ella me dijo que participara en los comités, que viniera a las juntas para yo conocer más el sistema educativo. Empecé a conocer mi comunidad, las necesidades de las escuelas, lo que podíamos hacer los padres para acercar los recursos a nuestros hijos. El participar como padre es bien importante en la educación de nuestros niños. Entonces empecé a organizar los padres, nos empezamos a organizar, a hacer eventos para poder acercar recursos a la escuela, con el beneficio de que nuestros niños recibieran una mejor educación. Y conociendo más a la comunidad de Elgin, vi que la necesidad no nada más estaba en mi escuela, la necesidad estaba en varias escuelas de aquí del U46, no nada más en la mía. El Elgin que todos queremos y que creo que muchos padres han soñado es tener un Elgin donde todas las escuelas sean equitativas, donde no haya diferencias, donde todos reciban los mismos recursos, donde los niños tengan las mismas oportunidades de educación independientemente del vecindario donde vivan, ¿sí? Que las escuelas sean, porque todos los niños merecen recibir los mismos recursos y la misma educación para que tengamos un futuro mejor aquí en Elgin y en todo el mundo.
Hi, my name is Atoy Gwinnett Spates, and I've lived in Elgin my entire life. My first name was given to me by my father, and my middle name is Gwinnett, which is my grandmother's name, and that was given to me by my mom. I've always had a really complicated relationship with my first name. There's a lot of mystery behind why and how my father named me Atoy. There's also a lot of lack of meaning, universal meaning and cultural meaning if I were to look it up on Google. So to combat this, I changed the spelling to an I because there are, in certain areas, that means an inspiration. So my father was the pastor of a predominantly Black Pentecostal church, and my parents sent me to an all-white Christian school from the age of 4. Growing up in both of those worlds, one world being my highly churched upbringing and all the ways that disconnected me from my natural way of connecting to spirit, and the other world being an entirely white world at school, which was my main community and the main people that I was around. There was a lot of differences in the ways that I would be treated by teachers, and overhearing comments from different parents and other students that at the time I didn't even know or understand were harmful to me. Because of that and all of those things combined, I grew up in a very highly disassociated state, and for me that looked and felt and sometimes still feels like not even knowing and embodying that I'm a real person. From a young age, I've always felt the weight of being able to feel through the illusion of organized religion and religious control. I would often cry to my mom about different injustices that I would see and harm happening to other friends of mine or other people in the community and the churches. I didn't have a language for it back then, or even like intellectually know what was happening. But growing up, experiencing the ways that white supremacist delusion influenced and was like deeply combined with organized religion was extremely painful and harmful to watch. I could never reconcile my experience of the divine with what I was experiencing in the churches that I grew up going to. Even though I tried for 25 years, the past 6 years, deconstructing that faith and connecting to my true spirituality through connection to the earth, ancestral ways, and indigenous practices has been the most healing thing in my life. My Elgin Re-Imagined would be an uprooting of all the ways that white supremacist delusion and organized religion have been weaponized against communities of color and individual people of color. Doing this in an attempt to keep us from our true power being our connection to ourselves, and our true power being a connection to our ancestral ways and indigenous practices. This would look like young Black kids like myself growing up knowing that it's okay and healthy to be connected to the earth and our ancestors. This would also look like older generations feeling and knowing that it's safe to pass down indigenous practices without fear of being harmed or fear of being deemed evil. My Elgin Reimagined would be a crumbling of all the corrupt systems that are disguised as organized religion and a planting of true community care in the rich soil of all of the various indigenous practices that are made up of our diverse and beautiful Elgin.
Mi nombre es Débora, soy una mujer transexual. Mi nombre me hace sentir libre, me da felicidad de presentarme al mundo realmente como soy. Tener una identificación que represente realmente quién soy yo me da más libertad y más poder en el mundo. Antes de poder cambiar mi nombre legalmente, para mí era traumatizante, por ejemplo, acudir al doctor o salir a lugares públicos, como la vez que acudí a la sala de espera con el doctor, el personal tal vez no estaba preparado para dar un trato digno a las mujeres trans. Se me llamó por mi nombre biológico, eso me hizo sentir vergüenza. Con todo y eso me levanté y me dirigí al mostrador. Fue algo que no tardé mucho para superarlo. Por ejemplo, en el consulado, y la vez que se me negó el acceso al baño en un restaurante, me dirigí a lavarme las manos al baño y el personal que estaba a cargo me dijo que no podía usar el baño de las mujeres, dado el caso que yo no era una mujer biológica. Eso me hizo sentir vergüenza, no pude hacer nada para defenderme porque no tenía una identificación que validara quién era yo. El proceso para cambiar mi nombre fue muy estresante emocionalmente. Pensé que no lo lograría, ya que se tuvo que publicar mi información y mi nombre de nacimiento en el periódico por 6 semanas. Conozco muchas chicas que no se atreven a hacerlo porque es algo estresante, te desgastas emocionalmente y eso a veces hace que pienses que no lo vas a lograr. Y eso nos afecta en el lado médico y emocional, y a veces evitas ir a un lugar o ir al doctor porque se te va a tratar o se te va a llamar con el nombre que tú naciste, y eso es traumatizante para nosotras. Ahora que tengo mi nombre legalmente me da más libertad, más seguridad, más oportunidades de empleo, estar en un lugar público, tener acceso a los baños públicos. Eso para mí ahora ya no es un impedimento. El Elgin de mis sueños sería un lugar que celebre y tolere la vida de las mujeres trans, y que nuestra vida, nuestra salud es tan importante como la de las mujeres biológicas. Tener acceso al centro de salud o que nos provean nuestros tratamientos que realmente necesitamos para poder ser felices, ya que todas las mujeres trans necesitamos ese tratamiento de terapia de reemplazo hormonal. Las personas piensan que esto es algo estético cuando no es así. Esto es un sueño de todas las mujeres trans que trascendimos a esto. Es algo importante que en su momento desearíamos hacerlo. Es nuestro sueño de todas las mujeres trans. Antes de empezar todos estos cambios, yo sentía que no había nacido aún. Ahora que he conseguido todos estos cambios, siento que estoy viviendo realmente lo que yo toda la vida he soñado desde que era pequeña. Ahora me siento libre. Como mujer latina trans, considero o pienso que deberían de existir más programas donde nosotras nos beneficiáramos y tuviéramos el cuidado médico que necesitamos para tener una calidad de vida buena y feliz, porque todas nosotras somos como cualquier persona que está allá afuera, que nuestros derechos valen igual que de la de cualquier persona, porque para eso estamos en este mundo, para ser felices como todos. Y salir de las sombras para mí es algo importante, ya no ser marginadas como en los otros tiempos.
My name is Sandra Davila, and my parents chose that name since they were dating. They said that they knew that I was coming, and I did. So they also chose that name because it was short and they found it beautiful, and they wanted a name. They could call me Sandy, and they wanted a name that could be easily translated to English. Even though at that time they were not planning on moving to the United States at all. My family and I arrived in Elgin in 1998 from Aguascalientes, Mexico. My sister was 9 and I was 14. Now I have realized that I've blocked a lot of those memories, not only those, but out of trauma. I wish I could remember more details. I never told a story because I used to consider it irrelevant until now. The 2 times that I came back from Mexico, they would set me back in school because my English wasn't good enough and I was coming from another country. As a result, I didn't have to study anymore because the education in my hometown, Aguascalientes, was more rigorous. Teachers and administrators saw something in me, and they referred me to a school program where students were encouraged to share their experience and their hopes. As a sophomore, I was invited to sit in a room of people, school people, and I was not prepared for that. Everyone was discussing their future, what they were thinking of becoming, applying to universities, and I was thinking, I'm undocumented. I do not get to participate to go to university for sports. I don't get to participate in any of these things. And if I say these things, my family is exposed and they're gonna be upset. So I couldn't say much because I was on the verge of crying most of the time out of feeling powerless. I understood about 50% of what was happening. There was no translation services, it wasn't culturally relevant, and they were using acronyms that I didn't even know. The adults in the room didn't recognize otherness and didn't allow for other experiences to be present or accommodate different backgrounds into the conversation. In other words, I was navigating white supremacy culture without knowing. My Elgin Re-Imagined is creating inclusive, safe, diverse spaces in all contexts, but mostly for children to feel empowered to create their own spaces. We have been oppressed for so long that we have forgotten our roots, and it's hard to imagine what schools would look like if we didn't have borders within ourselves and in learning spaces. The first time that I was in the room that Elgin City Council takes place was when I got a ticket for driving without a license because I was undocumented. And I felt powerless. They told me that I had to go there, not say anything, pay the fine, plead guilty, leave. The second time that I was there, I was there to read the demands for police accountability and transparency. And I read them in Spanish. And as I was reading in my native language, I had in mind all of my students and my family and my sister. And I was thinking, it doesn't matter where you are. We deserve to feel safe, and we deserve to be ourselves in whatever way, in whatever language.
¿Cómo te sientes ahorita que ya terminamos de grabar?
Pues yo me siento muy bien. Me gustó la experiencia, me gustó compartirla y me siento confortable.
How do I feel after? I feel like I'm gonna pass out. I'm scared, I'm anxious, but I'm also really honored that I get to share my story, even though this is the first time that I've shared all of this. So, yeah, I feel a mixture of things.
Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah. Any parts you wanna rehash? From the top or what?
How do you feel?
From the top. No.
No.
I liked them all.
It's about
I
your
don't
dash.
know what I feel now. I'm just numb, guys. So, yes.
I touch up on editing a little bit and stuff and other stuff, so like I try to picture it how the video is, but knowing that other people are seeing it, I'm very glad that people are now going to be aware of the situation.
Me siento feliz, creo que mi voz va a ser escuchada y tal vez muchas personas van a ser identificadas y van a tener la oportunidad de alzar las voces y tal vez van a dejar de estar allá adentro y salir y vivir en plenitud. Me siento feliz.
That's really good.
We deserve to be ourselves, guys. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for letting us, seriously.
I'd definitely say it's like a wave of new emotions, because usually I just forget stuff that like makes me sad or negative. I try to be more optimistic. If it doesn't help me, I just forget it, but definitely like thinking back definitely like bring me into like back where I was, but I'll be fine.
Me siento muy bien el compartir mi experiencia, el compartir todo lo que yo he vivido aquí durante estos 20 años en Elgin.
Si viera otra mujer trans explicando su vida, sus experiencias, su forma de vivir o todo lo que ha pasado, me sentiría identificada con ella porque yo sé que eso es cierto y que todo lo que cuenta es verdadero.
Are we done?
We are, thanks.
Did it come out okay? Was I a hot mess?
I like it.
Okay, because I felt like a hot mess.
No.
It is a little scary that like this stuff feels really
Intimate.
right now, and when it's out there, I think there's gonna be a curve of that shit's out there, and then that shit's out there.
I feel like it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to do like my Elgin Re-Imagined is.
Go in.
Yes, because it kind of makes me a little bit angry now. I don't know why. I went through all the emotions. Okay, why?